So people always ask, how did I end up with the dandelion patch? And the fact is, my girlfriends made me do it. So I was president of the Junior League. It was a women's organization, and frankly, I loved that. I loved the responsibility. I loved being able to manage and motivate and lead volunteer women. And so at the end of my tenure, kind of right in the middle of my tenure, my husband looked at me and said, you know, you're going to drive me crazy if you don't have something else to do when this is done. So you better start thinking about that now. And so I was out with my girlfriends drinking too much and talking too much, and they said, you know, there's a small little place called the Dandelion Patch for sale. You should buy it. And at the time, it was a very small hobby for a woman. Lovely, lovely woman. She had 75 very loyal customers, probably doing about $100,000 a year in revenue. And after that drunken night, I went back to my husband and said, I'm going to buy a retail store. And he said, you are a crazy woman. This is so hard. It's a hard industry. Write a business plan. Because, you know, remember, he's a banker. And I said, I don't know how to write a business plan. I tell you what, you do M&A for a living and you see business plans all day long. You write the business plan and I'll edit it. Anyway, 3 weeks of fighting ensued because he thought differently. And it was the best tough love that I've ever had, because it made me realize several things with my business plan, which, by the way, is still awful, but it was the exercise of going through and putting something on paper. It made me realize who my target audience was. It made me very quickly realize that for me, it wasn't about having one store ever. It's not even about having 2 stores or 4 stores, that it really is kind of a movement for me. And then lastly, it was an opportunity for me to understand who my competitors were and how to differentiate myself from my competitors. And had my husband not made me do that, I would have never gone through that exercise. And I think I am where I am today because he made me do that.
How many people in the audience are like run their own business or have ever done a business plan before or have this? Quite a few. That's very impressive. Very, very impressive. And, you know, how many people found it an invaluable exercise for their business? Just raise your hand. So I would say in our audience, a huge portion in attendance here has actually created and done a business plan. I think that's fine.
Isn't it miserable?
Yeah.
I had never done it. I've got a marketing degree, remember, so I could tell you all about my marketing plan, but it was interesting, to say the least.
So you took this concept, and I wanted to kind of back up before we got there. Number one, so you're living in Florida, and your husband ended up coming here. And so you came to Virginia.
I followed him.
So
yeah.
What did you think of coming to Washington, D.C.?
It was cold.
Yeah, that's what I noticed too.
I'm from Texas and I moved to Florida. This was cold for me. You know, I had a 1-year-old, I had a 12-month-old child with me, moved to a brand new area, had no family, had no friends. I was miserable, to be very honest. And similar to your story, I was bankrupt in my girlfriend, Rolodex. And so I quickly reemerged myself in the Junior League, which, you know, I've been able to do that from city to city, and it's been very helpful for me to plug in fairly immediately. And I've learned 2 things in my very short lifetime so far, that for me, whenever I think I've got it really bad, the first thing that I do is I go volunteer somewhere. Because as bad as I have it, oh my goodness, we have it really good. And it's one of those constant reminders. And so when I feel sorry for myself, which isn't often, I try to volunteer. And then the second thing is I realize that for me, I really need kind of a network of girlfriends. And there's many of them, but you know, the web is important to me.
I think, and we always like to take a moment when we have these epiphany moments. So if life is bad for you right now, go volunteer. That perspective will allow you to see that probably you have a lot more gifts and abundance in your life than you think you do right now, whether it's with girlfriends or helping somebody else. It is a huge thing to do, and I think it just feeds your soul to be able to do that. But that's also a great way to get connected and meet other people, you know, whether they're in a challenge portion of their life, but to begin to build that. So that really began to change your life, that inserting yourself in Junior League. And Junior League is a very big deal if you're in the southern states, but I don't know how big it is here.
It's big.
It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, one of the largest chapters is here in D.C.
I get lots of, so Washington, D.C. has a huge Junior League in Virginia, and so I think that's a wonderful thing. And you highly endorse getting involved with Junior League.
There's no question I am who I am because of the Junior League.
Oh, I like that. So it's changed your life and helped you become the leader that you are today.
Yes, very much so.
So your girlfriends get you drunk, you know.
Can we edit that part out? I'm not sure that I
would. So you had a glass of wine, and they convinced you
or 2.
it seemed like a good idea. Why do you think they thought you should buy the dandelion patch?
Because I was that mother. You know what I'm talking about. I was that mom that when I had birthday parties for my 1-year-old son at the time, you know, we had a theme, and the party invitations matched, the napkins matched, and there were games, and there was, I don't know. I was that person. And so they said, God, you'd be good at this. You should go buy this store. And you know what, I have to tell you, the two things that I'm most passionate about are my girlfriends and then making memorable moments last longer. And so making intimate connections. So I'm not really one of those people, I have to tell you, I network a lot, and I don't like networking and just swapping a bunch of business cards, because I really want to get to know somebody. Otherwise, it doesn't work for me. I hate having all these cards and I don't know what to do with them, or worse, not remembering who they were. And so for me, those are my two kind of sweet spots. And so for the dandelion patch, it kind of touched on both of those.
I think so it's really great. So when you're doing something, do something that's you. Mm-hmm. Do something you have ownership of, that reflects who you are. And I think that's when you look at some of those successful people, they're really living and acting in a position of passion, which I think is really where you are. So you went to the owner of the dandelion patch, because she had it up for sale. When you sell a store like that, is it on the front window for sale?
It wasn't. I mean, I don't know, maybe, but this one wasn't. It was one of those, rumor mill things. And I live in a small town, and people talk. So I knew that she wanted to get out, but I don't think it was officially. There was no sign on the door.
For sale, yeah, like for sale. It's not on sale in the store. The store.
No.
So, and you approached her, but I understand you didn't say, I want to come in and negotiate and buy it today.
No.
You actually negotiated, said, I want to buy you, but I want to come talk to you in a year.
Yes.
So how did that go?
Surprisingly well. I went in and said, okay, so tell me about your business. And I did all my due diligence with the help of my husband. And we said, okay, this is what we want to do, and this is how we'll buy it, and this is the terms that we'll buy it on. Oh, and by the way, we want to do this a year from now. And surprisingly, she said yes. And I think to my credit, I think it was because she knew that I had the leadership capability to take it somewhere that she wasn't not capable, she wasn't prepared to do. And I also think she knew that with my experience in the circles of people that we worked with the Junior League, that it would be a good customer fit. So
tell us
lucky for me, she waited for me.
Because I think your story is so fascinating when I look at what you've done. So you buy a little local stationery store, and you walk in now to the dandelion patch, and there's this sense of continuity of branding. And when you walk in, you could see in dandelion patch here, you could see it in Tucson, Arizona, you could walk in Georgetown, and
I'm not in Tucson, Arizona, but that's a good idea.
Okay, well,
I
know you're going there.
Okay.
But there's that sense that it's the same. There's two things I noticed about that resonate with your brand: the sense of intimacy, the sense of I feel very comfortable here. It has that. It draws you in. It's appealing. The colors, the feeling. But there's also this sense of the branding that's continuous. That's really how did you do that? I mean, was that from the very first moment? Was your first store that way?
Well, again, my business plan, one of the things that I think I really had to do was drill down, and again, I've got the marketing degree, so I had to drill down on who was my customer. So I did a lot of research on who that customer was and what she bought and what she looked like and where she went to school and where she shopped and did she belong to country clubs, et cetera, et cetera. So I did that kind of research. But then I have to tell you, Cynthia, some of it's because of you. So several years ago, when Sex and the City 2 came out, or was it? Yeah, it was 2.
Yeah.
No, it was 2. I don't remember. One of the shows came out. You called me and said, we want to do these baskets, and we want to do it based on all the different characters. I don't know if you've seen the movie.
It was 2.
Yeah,
it
was 2. And so, which one do you want to do? And so I got to choose which character I wanted to represent. And so, of course, who do you think I chose? Charlotte, exactly. And so I decided at that moment, because it was fairly easy for me to walk around my store.
You insisted you were Charlotte.
Yes.
It wasn't a negotiation.
No, I know. It was not negotiating. I said, of course we're Charlotte. Of course that makes sense. And so at that point, it was so crystal clear to me that everything in my store was Charlotte. Everything we represented was Charlotte. Every way that we communicated with our friends, the way everything from our colors, our fonts, our pictures, the things that we purchase in that store. So when you think of Charlotte, Charlotte is my brand. So Charlotte likes nice things, but she likes her girlfriends.
I think that's a great analogy.
So thank you for helping me figure that one out.
Yeah. Because who was it? The one that's the older one that moved to California. Who was that? Samantha. Yeah, that would be a lingerie store.
Yeah, that would not be me.
No. And I know I'm a lot like Carrie. That would be me. I'm Carrie.
The fashionable one.
Well, thank you. But no, so I think it really is. But yeah, you're definitely Charlotte, and I think that's true. But that brand conveys. But how did you do that? How did you take that concept to put that in? Because I think this is an important part of your story.
Right.
You started there. How did you do that?
Well, when I looked at the industry, remember I bought it in 2005. I'm a stationery store, and there was definitely a trend then, and it's escalated now, where there was a trend of doing more and more online. And so I tried to differentiate ourselves and figure out, okay, so who is that customer that's still going to be attracted to the paper, and who is that customer that's still going to buy custom invitations, because it's not everybody. And so I had to kind of be forward thinking in that respect, and realized that the days of having a custom invitation for a backyard barbecue, probably not so much. The days of having the custom invitation for your 3-year-old's birthday party, I get it, I do. Evite's appropriate for that. But when you're doing something as significant as a wedding or a bar bat mitzvah or a birth announcement or a lovely retirement party, those are life milestones that you want something to hold on to, you want something to frame, you want something to put in a scrapbook. That was my business model. So then I backed up and said, okay, so who are those people that are going to make those kinds of investments? Because not everybody's going to spend that kind of money. And I came up with Charlotte.
I think that that's incredible. So you went and you started with your first store near Vienna.
Mm-hmm.
So now your second store was Reston. How did you make the jump? That seemed like a good idea. Like you weren't busy enough running one store.
Right. Well, it was somewhat of the story of you build it and they will come. So remember, I bought the business, and it was the size of this cup, and the air conditioner worked, and there were potholes out front, and it was something that I frankly was slightly embarrassed of, to be honest, because it wasn't the brand that I wanted it to be. But I needed to exhaust a lease. Part of buying that business meant that I bought the lease that came with it, which was kind of a blessing in disguise. I didn't know what I was doing, and it gave me some time to figure that out. But then we built what we thought our flagship store would be in Vienna. Thought it was bigger than it would ever need to be, and prettier than it would ever. And we had all the bells and whistles, and then we outgrew it pretty quickly, and we're bursting at the seams. And so all of a sudden, that was when I started growing by 400%. I all of a sudden had this store, and it was crazy growth. And so we immediately latched on in 2007 and opened up at Reston Town Center. And Reston Town Center, for those of you who don't know, is, it's where the big boys play, right? That's where all the national name brands are. And so we had this lovely concept, and I thought a lovely business model, but when we moved to Reston Town Center, that's when it became real for me. Because that's when I knew that we needed policies like the Gap, and we needed return policies, and we needed gift cards, and we needed marketing plans, and all these things that you think of when you shop at Ann Taylor. All of a sudden, it was important to us because we were there. We were right next to, Ben & Jerry's was across the street in Victoria's Secret and White House Black Market. So my customer expected us to play like them. And so that's when I realized, okay, got to plunk down some more money, because that takes time and money to figure that out. And then, 2008 came, and fall was not a pretty sight. I lost more money in that quarter than I thought we'd ever lose. I was frightened for myself. I was frightened for our family. I was frightened for my business. And I don't know if you want me to go there or not, but
yeah, no, I think it's an important story, because I think your perseverance, your commitment. But I want to step back, because you said this a couple of times. I think it's really important we capture this. You know your customer.
Yes.
You know your customer, and if you are in business, it is critical you know who your customer is, because you're wasting resources and time and energy. If you're going to the sports authority and you're talking to men,
right,
there's going to be a huge disconnect. So I think it's knowing who your customer is and how you're going to reach them. Let's talk about 2008 and what you did, because you're here and you're growing and you're flourishing. So I think it's really important, because I think a lot of us have said, are we going to come through this period?